Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Palm Bay Live. With me today is none other than Councilman Harry Santiago, and welcome to the show, sir.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for bringing me on, Kevin. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for coming and accepting the invitation. And for those who are joining us, this is our second primetime live interview. And tonight we have, again, like I said, Harry Santiago. He's a councilman with the city of Palm Bay. And this is a Palm Bay driven show. And so to start things off, I'm going to have Harry, for those who don't know about you and who you are, can you give us a background of who Harry Santiago is and how long you've been serving on the city council?
Sure. Well, originally I'm from New York City, specific, in Brooklyn. Lived there practically all my life. About 18 years old, I went, to the Navy. Served for about 4.5 years. I was discharged honorably. I had an honorable discharge afterwards. Still trying to figure out why I didn't do the whole 20 years. I wish I would have, but that's hindsight being 2020. I should have done that. Afterwards, I worked a little bit on Wall Street. Then went into real estate. And it was after 9/11 happened that I started looking elsewhere. Started looking, to see, to live somewhere other than where I came from in New York City. So, started looking around. I had some family that actually live down here. We came down here a couple of times. We looked, and I would say about 2007, 2008, we finally, made the move down here. Bought my first house here, and bought my second house here as well. And it's been good ever since. I got politically involved, I would say, in 2010. And, there were some things that really came out, that was a pressing issue at that time. One of them being, the pension issues, with the, fire and police pension issues. But the biggest issue actually was the roads issues, things like roads. I know there was some dissatisfaction at the time, ironically, with the fact that the city went to a one garbage pickup system, and that happened around that time when I got involved. So there were some, people that didn't like that too much, but it was things like that got me in the fray, and that's when I was going to run in 2010, but then what I did is I just waited a couple of years. In 2012, I decided to run. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know what I was doing. But I heard that when you're in politics, you should be knocking on a lot of doors. So I did that. A lot of people didn't know me. Obviously, I didn't raise a lot of money. So I had to put in the best equity there was, and that was sweat equity. So, I knocked on a lot of doors, went to a lot of HOA meetings, let people know a lot, what I was about, and told them some of my solutions for the city. And 2012, November 2012, I got elected, and it's been a huge learning curve ever since.
Right. I remember, and I didn't share this with you when we started talking, but I don't know if you recall, the first time I met you was in about 2014, somewhere around there. We started a business, me and my wife, and we came to you about getting a permit in order to do an ALF, an assisted living facility in Palm Bay.
Right. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. That was my first time meeting you, and so that was quite a humbling experience, and my first time interacting with the city. Then didn't know that further on down the road I would be still interacting with the city, but that was my first interaction. So with that said, I do see questions popping up on the screen, and I will take those in a second because I believe some of your questions will be answered as we move along. But I want to start off with the BCRA and some of the feedback I'm getting from the public. Some newcomers to the city don't know what the BCRA is. So let's start with the background. What is the purpose of it? Why was it started? All that good stuff.
Okay, so the BCRA was actually started back in about May of 1999. It was back in 1999. But before that, what the city did was that they did what's called a finding of necessity study. You know, they wanted to see whether or not there was a need for a community redevelopment agency. And so after this study, they went ahead and determined that there were some needs within that area, and they defined the boundaries and everything where the need was, and then that became the Bayfront Community Redevelopment Agency, or the district. Okay, basically what the CRA is, it's a separate public entity that was created by the city, and you can pretty much say in conjunction with the county, and I'll explain why in a minute. Because what it was designed to do was to help redevelop. That's why it's called a redevelopment agency. But it's designed to redevelop, revitalize, basically improve the area. Mm-hmm. And it does that by redeveloping blighted areas, addressing affordable housing issues, encouraging private investments, encouraging capital coming in, mm-hmm. Things like that. So that's what it was created for. Now, the reason why I mentioned the county is because the county shares in the CRA. That's how the CRA is designed. So, for example, right now, the county, I think they put in about 35%, I believe, and I think our share is about 65. Mm-hmm. I think our share was about, in 2019, it was about $900,000, while the county share was about $420,000. So that's kind of the benefit. That's kind of the trade-off. But of course, that also means that the county has a say in terms of how we run the CRA. Although it's already stated in Florida statute as far as how it's run and how the board is, how many people on the board and how it's, how it's supposed to specifically operate. But the county has a lot of say as far as whether or not they want us around or not. So you probably heard some of that, in the past couple of years. CRA have been a big point of topic.
No, it's not to cut you off, but is that a good thing or a bad thing that they have so much control?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I think it's I look at it as a check and balance, especially if they're going to put some of their money up, then obviously the county should have a say. So that is true. Now they don't have, I just want to be clear, the county doesn't have carte blanche, control. We still have to do agreements with each other. Mm-hmm. But since they do have some of their money vested into this, and this is all CRAs, by the way, then they kind of do have a say, and they we have to work that agreement out with the county.
Okay, all right. So what projects or what do you believe, what benefit have we gotten from the CRA since its development?
So that's a good question because, like I said, it's the CRA has been around since 1999.
Right.
And there's a 25-year sunset period. So actually, it's going to sunset in May of 2024. So we're in 2020. We only got pretty much about 4 years left, and then we're done with it. So what have we done? What have we done since 99 to 2020? Well, I can, if I just sort of reverse engineer this back, I think the biggest thing that have come out of this very recently is obviously the luxury apartments that's coming in over at Robert J. Conlin. Okay, that was a result of the BCRA working in conjunction with the investors there. That's part of getting private capital in and having them redevelop in that area. But prior to that, really the CRA was more looking into developing, or I should say cleaning up blighted areas, and also some infrastructure projects. Like one of the ones you probably see if you drive down US 1 and you see a nice set of paver sidewalk with really tall street lights. That also came out of the CRA, which in all honesty, I was always kind of I was at first uh, 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 kind of looking at CRAs negatively, not because it's a CRA, but because the way it was used for all these years, And so one of the things that we did, and this was just only recently in 2015, when you had the new administration came in, and we started looking at things and saying, well, we're focusing too much on just cleaning up a blight, and we're kind of putting the cart before the horse by trying to just deal with infrastructure. But what we should be doing is redeveloping, having people come in, invest their money in the area so that that new money can then pay for the infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it's supposed to be done. And that's what a lot of successful CRAs actually do that. And there are some in Brevard County, one of them being, for example, Cocoa Village, or another one, West Melbourne. And that's the way they've always operated since day one. But we really haven't done that since day one. We haven't really focused on the main thing, which is redeveloping first, getting investors, getting capital in to then build, and then the money that comes from that then pays for everything else.
So why do you think, not to cut you off, but why do you think we're having such a hard time attracting investors, especially on that 4 mile corridor? So what is it that is stopping us from getting the actual, because there has been so much talk. I moved there in 2009 to Palm Bay, and there has been so much talk about that being a downtown corridor for the city of Palm Bay. And whether or not that is true, you could probably enlighten me. But why do you think that has not happened? What has stopped us from getting that actual extra mileage?
So, if you look at the zoning, in a lot of those areas in the BCRA, especially the Robert J. Conlin area,
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the zoning there is actually light industrial, and it's just been sitting there for a very long time. One of the reasons why industrials, companies haven't really been coming in and building there is because obviously a lot of the industrial is done now, overseas, but the ones that stay here for the most part, actually they like to operate right off of main highway corridors, especially like interstates like I-95 and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
So back then, when this was before the CRA, a lot of that area was purpose, if you will, for getting more industrial property coming in. And obviously, as things change over time, that didn't happen. So rather than the city, sort of looking at that and starting to change all of that, they kind of fell behind the 8 ball and didn't do that for quite some time. Like I said, we just recently, for example, in 2015, I believe we did the Bayfront mixed use. We did two kind. I think it was the Bayfront mixed use, and I think it was the Bayfront Village mixed use. And all of that was because we saw when we did our surveys and we did our study that a lot of mixed use property is what now sort of driving downtown areas. Both the business and the residential aspect. So we did that, and also another thing that we looked at is that we did a survey with now L3 Harris, before it was just Harris Corporation, with a lot of their employees, as well as Renaissance, and I believe it was one other company. And we asked them, because we noticed that a lot of the employees there don't live in Palm Bay. They come here, they work, and then they leave. And so Robert J. Conlon was sort of a highway for people with six figures working in Harris just to leave once they were done. And so we asked them, what would make you stay here? If we had something. And one of the things they said was, look, we kind of like what other places like Viera has to offer. They have, they have sort of the downtown feel. They have the apartment complexes. They have the townhouses. They have things like that. And I'm talking about like the Avenue area, that area over there, because obviously, Viera has a lot of single families as well. But for the younger folks, that's what they're looking at, the millennials. And so we kind of got together with investors and saying, well, look, this is what they're looking for. What do you have? And that's how the luxury apartments are coming up. And so we looked at the RJ Conlon as, hopefully, and I hope it will still continue even after I leave, as the future downtown. But I wouldn't set that in stone. Obviously, that can change as new council members come on, and they'll have other visions. But that will be a great way to revitalize the area and get the businesses that people want to see in there.
Okay, so your message to new incumbent councilman is what?
Think downtown. Because we need it. We obviously, because of a lot of things that are happening today, with the pandemic, and obviously, with the protesting because of the George Floyd issue. I'm sure we'll touch on that later on. But I've seen an article lately, very recently here, where it says that a lot more people are now starting to move out of the cities and are looking into suburbs and rural areas. But even with that being said, suburbs and rural areas still have downtown areas. That's sort of the central area where people go to, or maybe that commercial, complex area, if you will, where people go to, where they know, that's where you have, the nice restaurants, or the office jobs, or what have you. So you still need that element there. So I think that's very important. That's something that our city is just, it's been really lacking for a very, very long time. I said this one time at a city council meeting. We all talk about the city of Melbourne having a downtown, but you can even look at other, smaller cities and even towns that even have their little downtown. It may not be a lot, but it's something. And that's what we need. The city of Palm Bay, you really do need a downtown. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll take one question from the public before I go into my other questions. Let's go to the top here. And we will ask, Mr. Lockwood asks, Mr. Santiago, what do you believe your greatest accomplishment as a Palm Bay councilman is?
Oh, good question. Well, thank you. I believe my greatest accomplishment is actually getting more citizens involved in the city. When I first started out, and I was very green, I didn't know what I was doing. The first thing I did is I proposed a Citizens Budget Advisory Board, and that was back in 2013, and it got shot down. And I look back and I say rightfully so, because I didn't know what I was doing. I just brought it up out of nowhere and just presented it, and I thought, hey, Citizens Budget Advisory Board, who doesn't want that, right? But that was something that I knew that the city needed. So later on, I started working with my fellow council members, and I got things like the Road Advisory Board proposed and passed, which later on became the Infrastructure Advisory. The Infrastructure Advisory and Oversight Board. And also the Citizens Budget Advisory Board, I finally got passed as well. And also the Business Improvement District. And again, one of the things that I wanted to do there was to have citizens involved, to come in, to take charge of their city and give recommendations to us, to give advice to us, to help, not steer council, but just help council with other perspectives. Because after a while, it's very easy as you're sitting up there, and you're looking at just data, you're looking at information, and you need that citizen input who's connected, who's still there, saying, "Hey, by the way, remember this. This is important." So, and that's in all aspects, whether it's budget, whether it's roads, stormwater, everything. And so I thought that was very important, and so I proposed those things and got those things, passed. I wish I could say roads, but Kevin, I'm going to give you roads because that was all you, man. But
I'm not ready for council there.
I don't know about that, but hey, I did vote to have it go on the ballot, and that's what government is about. And if the people want it, they'll vote for it, and they did, and now we got roads, and so I'm happy to say that at least my tenure on the council, that at least we were now able to get roads done. Thanks to Kevin Vassiana and all of you out there. So
Not me alone. We had a team.
yeah, it's the whole team.
The whole team.
And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking. When you talk about citizens involvement, that's what happens when citizens are involved. When people are involved, when they're in there, and they're And so I've talked to. I talk to people along a wide spectrum, from HOAs to CRAs, and just getting everyone's input and seeing where we go and how we go as a city. And ultimately, it's up to us as a people to determine where our city goes.
Okay. All right. I want to move this conversation along, and I want to talk about the hot button issue in our city right now: garbage collection.
Ooh.
So we want to talk about your vote.
Mhm.
We want to talk about your vote, why you voted in favor of us joining forces or granting the contract to Republic. So I want you to dwell in that for me and answer to the public so they can know your your feelings on the whole matter and why you did what you did. We want to talk about the contract. So I want you to tell me about the makeup of the contract and why you feel it's a best fit for Palm Bay at this point in time. A lot of the residents in our public sphere are complaining about the price that they're going to have to pay for this. So I want you to delve into that. Do you think it's a benefit for them during this time? I mean, it's COVID-19. You have people crying out foul. They're not making much money. Why do you think now is the best time for this contract at this point in time? And keeping all of that in mind, I have feedback. I mean, I believe I read opinions on social media. Some folks were against the 2 days a week pickup, and some folks were wanting to go back to the 1 day a week. And why isn't that beneficial? So the floor is yours. Go ahead and tell me what what is in your heart as far as that contract is concerned.
Okay, so anyone who ever talked to me about trash pickup know that I was always adamant about going to twice a week. I mean, this is something that I thought we needed to do as a city, primarily because of health reasons. It's funny that you mentioned that there's a lot of people that complain about that, but I've also gotten, I've also had people come up to me and say, hey, I thank you for bringing us back to twice a week. And one of the reasons is because I've always heard complaints about, maggots. I always heard complaints about flies. But I not only heard them, I seen them. Me being in real estate and being out there, I've seen people with their garbage out, with the maggots and flies on the trash. I've not only seen that out in the street when it was time for trash pickup. I've seen that I'm not pointing anyone out, but I've seen that in people's garage.
Mhm.
And I think that's a really big health and safety issue. Now I understand that there's a considerable portion of our population that either maybe they don't have a lot of kids, or this it's just maybe a couple or one person, and I can appreciate that, understand that, and so there are folks that are like, one time is good for me. I don't need twice, and I'm perfectly fine. And that's true, and I understand that. But I think there's also people out there that really that does need it, that do need it, and if anything, that would make you safe, knowing that now they can put their garbage out twice a week. But the other thing about this is hurricane season.
Mhm.
Every time hurricane season came, when a hurricane came, okay, it was always the same thing. And the only thing really that can settle that issue with regards to people's garbage not getting picked up is really a twice a week pickup, because it will get picked up before hurricane, as well as after the hurricane. So that's another reason why. So I think we really needed to move, as a city of 118,000 people. We really needed to move away from a one pickup city to a twice a week pickup city. But the biggest deal for me was the sanitary, the health issue. And that's always been an issue for me. It's always been a pet peeve for me. I was not a big fan of the first contract. Not to say that I have anything against Waste Management. I think Waste Management, is a very good company, and they did the best that they could. But with this contract, there were certain things that you got. Okay, you did get, everyone is getting twice a week pickup. Also, everyone is going to get unlimited bulk pickup. That's another thing. So I thought that again, there were good things about this contract that I liked, that I felt we needed to move forward. I think as far as the cost is concerned, here was another thing that I looked at. We were going to see an increase even if we went to a once a week pickup. And that's something that I think the public needs to know. So we were paying about what, $12.50 a month, if I'm not mistaken. The proposal that we got was about $19 for a once a week pickup. Even if we worked it out, we renegotiated, like we renegotiated the twice a week pickup.
Mhm.
We were still looking at maybe $16, $17. So you were going to see an increase anyway, and yet see no difference in terms of your service. So when you look at, okay, what can you get all for your money, for what you're putting into it, I think getting that extra pickup and that unlimited bulk was something that I thought that we really needed as a city, especially when it came to unlimited bulk, because like I said, you talk about hurricane, you talk about people who rent their property and they're moving their stuff out, things like that. We really needed that a lot, because I seen that was something that we lacked for so many years, and I've gotten so many emails. Council have gotten so many emails and so many complaints, and it always came back to the once a week pickup. It always sort of went right back to that, as sort of the source of all the complaints concerning the service that they're getting at the moment. So I had to make a decision to say, okay, do I still accept a contract that's going to increase people's costs, but still give them the same service and still have the safety, still have the health issues and all the other issues that come with once a week pickup, or do I go now up to a upgrade to a twice a week pickup, unlimited bulk, and and better service? I think that was the better route to go. With regards to the cost and the time, I totally understand that. But I will say this, and I'll try not to delve too much, but I will say that uh, uh, there are other ways to cut costs for the citizen as we go into budget season. So, and I think that's where we can sort of make that up, for the taxpayer. Um, uh, you know, uh, Fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I say it's fortunate because we're a city that's real young. We are the youngest city in Brevard County. We just started in 1960, but we have also had a lot of growing pains, and so that's why there are certain things that I believe we really need to deal with. One of them, obviously, is like roads, which doesn't cost a pretty penny, but it's worth it, as you can see. Stormwater is another thing, and also waste management. I think we really need to focus on our infrastructure and garbage, trash pickup, recycle pickup, bulk pickup. That's part of our infrastructure. That's part of taking care of the well-being, the welfare of our community.
Okay. Before I switch gears, I have one question that was sent to me earlier today. I want to ask you about the budget process here in a second, but there's a question that says there is a talk that Waste Management may be planning to challenge the city's RFP process and the new solid waste contract awarded to Republic Services. Is there any truth to this? And if so, what reasons would there be for them to challenge it?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, I have not heard of anything like that. And I was checking my email and I'm saying, okay, I don't see anything in my email. That's something that I guess I'm going to have to get back with staff and ask if there's some truth to that, or there's been some rumors or something. But I would think that if something like that were to happen, or even if there were rumors, I would have gotten something, as one of the city council members. So for now, I have to say that I have not heard of anything like that. But if I did, I'll certainly I'll certainly let everyone know. Maybe that will be one of the things. Since a long time, I'll put something on Facebook, say yes, this is true. but I haven't really heard anything like that.
Okay. You touched on the budget process. I believe that starts this Thursday, right? Workshop?
Actually, no, this Thursday. We're going to have a workshop for the parking.
Oh, the parking issue.
Yeah.
Okay. When does the workshop for the budget start?
I believe the workshop for the budget starts. It does start in June, but I believe that's. You know what? I'm sorry. I should have gotten that for you right away.
That's okay. That's all right. You will get back to us, or you can update a post at some point in time. But yeah, that'll
be June 23rd.
The 23rd. Okay.
Yeah, June 23rd, and we have it tentatively right now.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as we etch that in stone, that will be made public.
Okay. All right. On to parking. There's a lot of complaints that residents are saying that they would like to park anywhere on their property that they say so see fit, and this ordinance is getting in the way. What says you? What's the purpose of the ordinance? Why do you think it needs to exist? And why do we, as they say, not me, but the residents are saying you're trampling on their rights as homeowners?
Sure. No, I understand it. Well, let me just give you a little bit of backdrop on this. So what happened? I would say about 2, maybe 3 years ago, I was approached by group of people, real estate agents, homeowners, especially homeowners, who basically they were complaining about people parking their cars all over their properties, on their front yard, everywhere around their property that basically, made it an eyesore. So, obviously for real estate agents, you can imagine it just made it hard to sell property. For homeowners, obviously, you have to think of it this way. You got someone who's coming from out of state or what have you. They're here, they're retiring, they're coming to the city of Palm Bay to buy a house, and little do they know that they may have a neighbor who every now and then like to just park all their cars all over their property. Why they never caught that before, I don't know. Maybe the neighbors change in the process, but they had a complaint about it. So I looked into that with staff. There was no ordinance to deal with that at the time. So I told them to look into that and say, let's look at other cities and see what they have and see if we can tailor something specifically to the need of our city. So they did. But before they did, what we did is we put some stakeholders together. So we got citizens, we got homeowners, real estate agents, construction workers, appraisers, and I think a police officer or firefighter, police officer, that basically came together. They did sort of this focus group. They looked at the ordinance. They saw what was good, what was bad. Then we workshopped it. And then after we workshopped it, then it went to the council, and then we had 2 readings, and we had the ordinance. I would say that was maybe about 2.5 years ago. So everything was going well as far as I'm concerned. I don't think there was any issues. Sure, some people got cited, but it wasn't one of those things where people were paying an exorbitant amount. Most of the time it was dropped, because most of the time it was just an educational thing, and that's one of the things that I wanted to emphasize. People would get a knock on the door and say, hey, by the way, we got a new ordinance says that you can't park on, say, your front lawn, but you can park over here, and things like that. And most people appreciated that. Others, of course, didn't. But we were very lenient, and we did about a 6-month, say, probation just to see where it was going. We saw that it went very well, and so we kicked it off, and it went well ever since. Then obviously, a certain council member brought it up and wanted to get rid of it. So I totally understand that. But when we brought up the numbers, when we brought up the statistics and saw what this ordinance did, it was quite phenomenal. We saw where there was I think it was about a 94% success rate that this ordinance had. And what I mean by that is, people were complying with the ordinance. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I personally, and other people I spoke to, saw a big difference in our city. Now you may say, well, those are people's properties. They can do whatever they want. And that's true. I would agree with that. But I think also when you look at private property rights, I think the homeowner next to them also have a private property right as well. And when that person moved in to the suburbs in a residential area to live next to a residential house, they probably were not expecting, say, 10 cars on the front lawn. And that's something that can be debated, but that was an issue with people out there. So it wasn't something that I saw for all those 2 years, people complaining and massive emails and phone calls coming in. Actually, to the contrary, and I can show emails of people emailing saying, hey, I got someone next to me, who parking all their cars all over the place. Do you guys have an ordinance for this? And I'm like, yeah, I'll send it to staff. So it was very successful in terms of that. But there are some contradictions with the current ordinance, with another chapter of an ordinance as it relates to RV. So that's something that we want to and farm equipment, by the way. So that's something that we want to sort of iron out and make sure. And I'm actually making some more compromises on this to make it more palatable. Because like I said, this was not something to to create, say, an HOA throughout the city. I mean, that's something, obviously, that was not the intention of this. The intention was to, to minimize, first of all, minimize eyesores. And secondly, I also think that there is a safety issue here. Some folks might have especially depending on when the house was built and where the house is located, might have their septic tank located in the front of their property. So if you have cars parked in front on the front lawn, or even their drain field, then guess what? They're damaging their drain field or their septic tank. So that's an issue. Even if they were to park their car in the back and the septic tank is in the back or the drain field, again, they're causing considerable amount of damage over time. Which then again, now you're talking about environmental issues. So I thought it's something that I think improves the city, improves the the visual aspect of the city, and the overall welfare of the city and the living standard of our city. To know that you can live in a house and your neighbor is not parking all 5 or 6 of their cars on the front lawn or just anywhere. That I think can be an issue to most people. And that's what that's one of the things over the years that I've heard kind of gave the city of Palm Bay a bad name. Other than the road issue, it's how people treated their own property in relation to their next door neighbor. So I thought again it was a really good ordinance. My biggest pet peeve with ordinances is that it has to have a high compliance. In other words, if it's unenforceable and people are not in compliance with it, it's a bad ordinance, and you might as well just not have it. And I really do believe that. But this ordinance does work. It has, it does have a really good success ratio. It is enforceable. There are people that are coming to code enforcement to have to deal with it. Most of them are treated very leniently. I helped one person, recently, who didn't even know that he had an issue. And I said, look, there's really nothing I can do, but I tell you what, just go see the code enforcement board. I heard they're pretty good. They're not, they're not, banging people over the head with stuff. They're very understanding. And he came out very happy. He said, yeah, we got everything resolved. So, so again, I think it speaks to, again, our citizens, how they value their property, as well as how they value other people's property. And I think that's very, very important. Again, I'm a big property rights guy. But you also have to, ask the question again. Yes, I can do whatever I want with my property, but to what extent can I do whatever I want with my property before it starts violating, my neighbor's property? And I think this ordinance, again, being enforceable, people were going into compliance with it. I think it was a good ordinance, and so we're going to iron it out again this Thursday in the workshop.
Okay. The workshop, is it? I'm getting feedback. Is it open to the public or is it virtual?
It is virtual, but it is open to the public. You can. I would call the city clerk's office or just look online. But yes, you can call and leave a message. You can also email, or you can have your voice recorded as well. So I believe I believe it's the same as a regular council meeting or a special council meeting. But it should be open to the public, yes.
Okay. Is there a reason why we opted to go virtual on this one as opposed to?
Well, that per governor's order, we're still going virtual, which I don't quite understand because, you know, I was just at church recently, and we all met physically, but we can't meet, you know, physically, you know, at a regular council meeting or workshop or what have you, at a government meeting. So I mean, that's the reason why. But people can still come publicly, by the way. People can still come physically. It's just up to them whether or not they want to do so. But yes, you can still come physically if you want. You know, but the council members will be virtual. Okay. And obviously the seats and everything are going to be separated, and, you know, 6 feet distancing and everything else.
All right, I want to go back to another public question, and this is another good one from citizen Ron Lockwood, and so I'm going to put it here on the screen so you can see it. I'm going to do a follow-up on this, I believe. At the current rate of new housing growth and continued new development in abundance, do you believe the standing infrastructure plan, including the road bond rebuild, without a strategy of annual maintenance, will benefit new and current residents / businesses?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and you know, to be honest with you, if we don't have an annual plan to start putting money into roads, which in my opinion we're probably about a year behind on that, and we really need to. Yeah, you're right. You know, we're gonna fall behind the 8 ball on that, and that's something that we can't, you know, we can't do. So yeah, with all the development that's happening, we really need to build a strategy to start putting money towards the maintenance of the roads that we're now putting in new. And I think that was something to the tune of about $7 million a year that we need in order to have a good maintenance plan going forward to, you know, to constantly maintain the new roads, you know, that we're putting down. So absolutely, we need that. But at the rate that we're going right now, I think we're behind, and we really need to start looking into that. You know, so the only way I can answer that question is, in the next 4 years, you will find out with the new council as far as what they're going to do. But I honestly believe that if we don't start putting serious money behind it, then we're gonna fall behind quite significantly.
Okay, I want to touch on roads again because something I failed to ask Brian when I interviewed him last week. But the road maintenance fund, hot button issue. I know it is with Councilman Bailey, and what are we going to do this budget cycle to make sure that we actually do right by that road maintenance fund? What are we going to, as a council, as a body, as you, because you can't speak on behalf of the others, but what do you think you're going to do differently this time around to make sure that we have money allocated toward maintaining our roads?
Yeah, so yeah, I think one of the things that we're going to have to do, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, again, I'm only 1 out of 5. So, you know, I'm pretty sure that the rest of my colleagues might have other ideas, but one of the ideas that I like to, you know, perhaps my colleagues to look at is looking at what we have in our general fund, because we got a pretty healthy general fund, which is a good thing, and that's something that we need. But I also think that we need to allocate a certain amount of that towards our road maintenance fund. Now, the thing is, and I tell everyone, with a road maintenance fund, okay, it's not like it's something that's there in stone, right? In other words, you can put, say, $7 million, right? I'm just throwing out a number. You can put $7 million in a fund called a road maintenance fund, but it's pretty much still sort of a general fund. So you can, future council members can still tap into that money and put it wherever they want. And that's something that, again, hopefully the citizen advisory boards that I created, like the infrastructure advisory and oversight board, will look at, and the citizens budget advisory board will look at and say, hey, we really need to look at this fund and not lose sight of what we need to do. It's unlike other, say other things, like, for example, an assessment is very specific and you can't go outside of that by state law. But any other fund outside of that, if it's not an enterprise fund, it basically can be tapped into at any time. So I'm always pretty weary about, any other fund is concerned, because I call this sort of like a hidden slush fund that can always be tapped into and used. And I think that's sort of a warning for future council members to always, keep an eye on that, and make sure people don't start tapping into that for little pet peeve projects. I want to build a little park here or whatever, let me just tap into the road maintenance fund, because that can happen. And there's nothing that can, you don't need a special ordinance or resolution to make that happen.
Wow, interesting. So that's something as citizens that we have to look out for. All right, social issues. Recently, we know the death of George Floyd, and we know the issues surrounding Brevard County. Over the weekend, someone posted on the Brevard FOP Facebook page a very disturbing message. I'm pretty sure you saw the message, and so I want your feedback on what's going on in our nation right now, and on that particular subject. I understand today that the gentleman in question was suspended with pay, so I want your take on that too as well, and how that's going to be playing out in the public sphere. The citizens, as they demonstrated throughout our city, the feedback we're getting from our police chief in regards to the whole situation, which is very positive message that he's sending out, and I think it's welcomed by the citizens of Palm Bay. And so, what's your take? Where are you at in that emotionally? Has it troubled you? Has it moved you? And yeah, your feedback, please.
Yeah, absolutely. First, let me just say that the city of Palm Bay Police Department is in no way affiliated with Brevard County FOP. I think that's important. I know Chief Moya has stated that very recently. I think even Sheriff Wayne Ivey has stated that as well. And so in no way are we affiliated with Brevard County FOP. And I think it was very shameful what that particular lieutenant said with regards to the folks up there. I think it was Buffalo who pushed the older gentleman down who got injured, and it was a very bad situation. And saying, hey, you can come down here. Trust me, our police department is not saying that, and no one in our leadership is saying that. And I'm, of course, here representing the city of Palm Bay, but I even saw Sheriff Wayne Ivey put out a statement, something to that effect as well. I think it was the right thing to do to suspend them immediately and investigate it. I don't know where that's going to go, because obviously, again, that's county, that's not city. So I'm not sure where that's going to go, but I guess after the investigation, we'll see what Sheriff Wayne Ivey is going to do over at Brevard County. With that being said, and I'll just touch on the recent tragic event with George Floyd. I've said something about this at the last council meeting, but I thought it was very tragic, and I thought it was just so sad, and yes, it did make me angry to see that, to see another grown man put his knee on a grown man put his knee on another grown man's neck. Regardless of who that person is, or regardless of what that person have done, doesn't even matter. I think the issue that you saw with George Floyd and even other issues going back, with regards to other police brutality, or what have you. You got to take that?
No, no.
Okay, you good. So I think a lot of those issues, it's something that has built up over time as it sort of, I would say, came to a crescendo with George Floyd. When that happened, I think that set a lot of people off because it was just so obvious at that point. We've heard of other things happening, but it was always, sort of either we heard it or we saw the video, but it was sort of a starting point. But then you had what happened to George Floyd, and it just became so obvious that there's an issue that we have that we need to really deal with. And so I was very happy to see our police chief, Moya, go out there and made a statement immediately. And the most important statement he made is that is not the practice of the city of Palm Bay as far as how we treat people.
Mm-hmm.
There is an aspect of you have to treat people humanely, regardless again of who they are or what they have done, what they have committed. We have a system in our nation, and we have to let the system play itself out, and not just take it upon ourselves to do something at the moment. And I obviously, I'm maybe I'm a little biased on this, but I will say that there had to be some sort of a racist issue going on with the whole George Floyd thing. But obviously there were other police officers there. But I think more so, I think it was just really more of an issue with the way that police department handles in their practice, how they handle situations like that. And so I think it's a big wake-up call for every police department, every sheriff department. They all have to look at their practices. They all have to look at what they do, how they operate. What are we doing? First of all, they have to ask themselves, what are we doing to be proactive and get out there and connect with the community, mm-hmm. first and foremost. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to say that here in the city of Palm Bay, we have done that for many years. And that we've done things like coffee with the cop, or we've done things like, shop with the firefighter, things like that. We've always been very, very much out there, very much open, very much public, dealing one-on-one and corporately with our civic leaders, our religious leaders, as much as possible, HOA and everyone out there, and getting their feedback and working with them and having a great relationship. And that's the first place you want to really start. If you don't do that, then you're never going to get the necessary input to know how you have to deal with your community. And that's very important. So I think for police departments and sheriff departments all throughout the country, they have to really look at that first and foremost. And then they got to look at their policies, and they got to see, okay, what kind of confrontational policy do we have? That's the second thing that they have to look at. Is it too rough here? Is it maybe should we eliminate this? Maybe we should look at other best practices. And the third thing they need to do is also hold each other accountable. And they just need to be very blunt with each other and know that when someone is having an issue or a problem, that someone can step in. When I saw what happened with George Floyd, the first thing I thought of was, why isn't anyone else, I'm not talking about the people, the public, but the other police officers,
why did that
should have stepped in and say, hey, I think that's enough, get off of them. That's called accountability. And if you can't be accountable to one another, then you're basically, you're going to have issues with the community. And in that case, now that has become an issue that obviously has become nationwide. I think that's something that's been something that we need to deal with. And again, it's just very tragic. I'm very sad, and my prayers go out to the family of George Floyd, and all his loved ones and his friends. I know they probably miss him very much, and really my prayer go out to the entire nation as we're going through what we're going through right now. I know that there's a lot of peaceful protesters that are out there that they want to draw attention and make aware of this issue, and I think that is the right thing to do. You need to do that. It is, of course, our constitutional right, according to the First Amendment, to do that. Unfortunately, there are people that are taking advantage of that situation, and they're doing things that they should not be doing. And so I recognize that the rioting and the violence are not being done by the protesters. The protesters are out there doing the right thing. They're protesting. They're making this issue aware, and they want change immediately. And absolutely, it's about time we should.
Okay, awesome. All right. Let's see. Okay, just a statement from candidate Guam. I'm gonna put it on the screen here. He says, yeah, he's absolutely right. If one of the other cops would have just done not something, they would have saved so many lives. That's from candidate Guam. Right. So with that said, the last question. I don't know if I asked you yet, but basically, why did you decide not to run again?
So, I'll be honest with you, Kevin. I would say after the 2016 election, okay, right after the 2016 election, I was thinking about whether or not I wanted to run again. It was right after that, and the reason why is because when you take this job seriously, it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot of time out of you. It takes a lot of your own money. It takes a lot of your own effort and everything else. That would otherwise go to for example, my family. And I missed out a lot of time with my wife, with my kids. And so one of the things that really had me thinking, one day I'm at the park with my kids. And I kid you not, I looked at, as I was talking to my wife, I said, oh my goodness, I can't even remember the past 4 years that I had with my kids, because prior to that, I would take my kids out almost every weekend. Either we'll go out fishing, or we'll go out to the park, or we'll go out, to some, somewhere. We were always doing something, and we were always very, very much active. And then ever since I got elected, because again, when you take the job seriously, you start holding more than just the regular council meetings. Now you're doing the special sessions, you're doing the workshop, you're doing the special meetings, you're holding the private meetings with staff, you're doing all this stuff, talking to community leaders and all this stuff, and you're going out to events, and you're creating relationships and things like that. Things that good politicians are supposed to do. You're supposed to create those relationships in order to make the kind of changes that you want in your community. And that takes a lot of time, and that takes a lot of effort. Reading those 300-400 page agendas and everything. You got to know all that stuff. And so, I invested so much time, and it was after 2016 that I just started thinking about it, but I prayed about it. And I said, Lord, if it's your will, let me know. I kind of operate that way. And, it's just one of those things that as time went on, and things happened, that I took it as, okay, I think it's my time to go. After 8 years, that was it, you know. So I talked with my family, of course, sat down with my wife and my kids, both my kids. We prayed about it, we talked about it, and my kids were like, Dad, I want you back home. I need you to come back home. It's been a long time, and I just hate that you're working all day, and then you got to put on a suit and you got to leave again, and there's hardly any time with us. And my son, he's just turned 15, so we figure for those whole 8 years, not that I never spent any quality time with my son, but it's still a lot of time taken away, because as you know, we're still working full-time jobs other than doing this job as a council member. My daughter just turned 7 years old herself. So I'm sorry, 8 years old. So I don't want to miss any more time. My kids are at the time. My son now, he's looking forward to college. My daughter, obviously, she's still young, and I just want to be there for them. And kind of hindsight being 2020, I'm not saying that I wish I didn't run, but or serve, because it's a great pleasure for me to serve the city and my neighbors and my community. But there was a lot of time taken away from my family and my kids. And then also some really other aspirations that I had individually that I really wanted to tackle or should have tackled first, and so I want to get back to doing that. And like I said, I enjoy doing what I do. I learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I took away a lot of good things. I took away things that I know I should be doing for me personally, as well as things I should not be doing for me personally. So, I always say, when you walk away from something and it made you a better person, good or bad, whether good things or bad things happen, what I mean, but it made you a better person, so that you can now take that and implement that somewhere else and become better at it, whether it's in business or anything else, then it just makes you, it just makes you stronger. And so there was a lot of good takeaways that from the city, and I was happy to invest so much of my time, into the city, but now it's time for me to go. It's time for me to go, and it's time for others to take the reign and serve our community.
Okay, so the last question for tonight. What advice do you have for the candidates who are going to be watching this interview on replay or right now? What advice do you have for them going forward? What do you have to offer them as far as advice?
So I would say my biggest advice, if I look back and say, man, I wish I would have done this first before I ran. When I finally got elected in 2012, I started going to a series of class from the Florida League of Cities called the Institute for Elected Municipal Officials. Well, the Florida League of Cities, they do have a lot of that. They have a lot of that, information, a lot of those educational materials online. I would advise that, if you want to run for city council, go on the Florida League of Cities website. If you can make some of those classes even before, you do get elected. If you do get elected, it's a good idea. Attend one of those, or look at one of their webinars, or their online videos. Look at their materials. Learn what a city budget looks like, and the different components of it. Learn things like what's the difference between an enterprise fund and a general fund. What you can and cannot do with those things. Learn different things like assessments and what you can and cannot do. Learn those things. Also, there's a lot of things, with regards to ethics. And those are other things that you want to look at, especially when it comes to sunshine laws, when it comes to things that you should or should not be doing. Those are good things to look at. Even classes, they have them online. I think they may even have them for free. Those are good things, and if you're not scared away after that, then you're ready to run. So those are some of the things that you want to do. So I would definitely do that. And obviously, when it comes to running for city council, I always say like 90% of that is marketing. So you got to market yourself. You have to sell yourself. You have to tell people why they should vote for you. And most of the time when you're running, okay, and you're talking to I don't want to say like the average citizen, but when you're just talking to most people out there, okay, because there's a difference between, say, the circle who are in the know, who are more involved, like yourself, right? And a little bit more than, say, maybe your neighbor, okay? But your neighbor may not know everything that you know. So you have to keep that in mind as a candidate. When you're out there and you're talking to them, they may not know all the jargon, or they may not know everything you're talking about, that even what is happening or had happened in the city. Now, and they'll look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. Why? Because most people, they're working, they're raising their family, they're busy, they're doing so many other things. So the best thing to do is to communicate to people what you believe, why you believe those things, and how is what you believe is going to help positively change that person's life. And that's very important. And sometimes there's a fine line, because sometimes we can sometimes like sort of live in our own little world and say, well, I think this is right, but when we listen to people, then we start thinking otherwise and say, oh, well, maybe there's something else I really need to start looking into. Maybe I need to listen a little bit more to what people are saying. And that would be the last thing. Listen to people. Listen to them. People want to be listened to. They want to be heard, but they want action after that. They want to see that you're doing something. And so that's important. That's maybe a little bit after the fact, but if you're going to run, just know that you're in it for the long haul. Once you qualify this Friday, I think it's this Friday, right? So,
yes.
So once you qualify, you're in, right? So that means, get ready. Your name will be in the papers. Everyone will know you, as long as you're putting your name out there. You will be the go-to person. There people are going to look to you as to, okay, what's happening in my city. So
please contact me because I will interview you.
So just get ready, because that's what you're putting yourself into, and you have to expect that, because now you're becoming a servant leader. Now you're serving everyone else. You're serving your community, but you're leading with 4 other members. You're leading the city. That's my best advice to everyone. I know I've been a little long-winded. I think you went like a half hour, Brian. Here we are, an hour 15 minutes, man. I'm sorry. It's my fault.
That's all right. We're good. I think you answered a lot of questions tonight, and I'm thinking that the public in general like your feedback and what you had to relate to them. Whether they like your opinions or not, that's not for me to judge. I'm just a news person. I'm here to ask the questions and not to badger you with other stuff, and just to ask the pertinent questions that I believe the public, people in the public sphere is asking, in order for them to gain traction on what to believe or not to believe, based on what is being dispersed, not only in social media, but throughout the community. I just want to make some announcements before we drop off. I'm going to mind it to your screen for a second, because I want to bring some things to the forefront really fast, that tomorrow I will be having an interview with candidate Donnie Felix. So individuals who Yes, tomorrow we'll be having an interview with candidate Donnie Felix. So I would like for individuals to tune in tomorrow to pretty much send me your questions and in regards to Donnie Felix. And if you have questions to him, please go ahead and submit them. So that's tomorrow with Donnie Felix. And then also, we're going to be having an interview with candidate Thomas Quam. Candidate Thomas Quam, that's going to be done on the 17th at 8 p.m. Okay, Thomas Guam, the 17th at 8 p.m. That's next week. And then on the 23rd, we're going to be having Janice Chris. Janice Chris is going to be one of our guests on our live at 8 p.m. She'll be joining us on 23rd. So stay tuned for that. Look out for the flyers, the posters, all that's going to be distributed across social media. And get ready to be a part of that. So with that said, so that's the tomorrow 10th, we're having an interview with Donnie Felix. The 17th with Thomas Guam. The 23rd with Janice Chris. That is going to be on the 23rd. So I look forward to your questions. Now for the 10th, the interview tomorrow, it will not be live. It will be a pre-tape interview. However, I do encourage you to send me an email to palmbaylive@gmail.com with your questions that way I can post them to Donnie. And that video will be made available at some point in time next week that you can go back and rewatch that and see his answers to your questions. So palmbaylive@gmail.com. You can go to the website www.palmbaylive.com to get my contact details if you want to reach out to me and ask me pertinent or send questions to me in a different format so I can get them to Donnie. So the candidate interviews do begin tomorrow. Tomorrow is the first one, but that one will be pre-taped. Then Thomas Guam will be live on the 17th at 8 p.m. and Janice Cripps on the 23rd at 8 p.m. I do have lined up interviews with the mayoral candidates. I have interviews with, I am planning on interviewing the Republican senator, not senator, I'm sorry, Representative Randy Fine. That is in the works. We don't have a date set yet, but that's in the works. So there's a lot of things in the pipeline that is coming forward, and a lot of folks have been receptive to these type of interviews, which is good. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, participating. I love your feedback. If you could send me some messages, let me know how everything is going on your end. And yeah, and please keep checking back the website, the Facebook page, all of my social media handles on Instagram, and Twitter, and just let me know what's going on, and I'll get to you back as soon as possible. So thank you so much for spending the night with me. I know we went over quite a lot tonight, Harry, but feel free to any last closing words before we sign off?
Well, I just want to thank you, Kevin, for doing this. I really appreciate what you're doing for the community. I enjoyed the last meeting that you had, the last interview that you had, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy all the rest of the interview. And this is just a great way to get to know our candidates, to know our community, both politically and even in business. I'm pretty sure you're going to have more people on here, and so I want to thank you for having me on. And again, I thank you and appreciate everything that you're doing.
Okay, and one last other thing that I didn't announce, but the debates are happening. We are going to be doing virtual debates in July. We already have C2 candidates pretty much. Majority of them already answered yes, that they will be showing up, so that's good. C3 candidates, that's in the works. I believe pretty much all of them. We're going to wait for qualifying on Friday to see who's still in and who's out. And then mayoral candidates will be up next and all that good stuff. So things are happening. And so these will be live, moderated, and we look for your participation, and we're looking for moderators. So if you would like to volunteer as a moderator, send me your CV and say why you want to be a part of this. And you know, my contact details is on the website, so you know how to reach out to me. I thank you so much, everyone. Have yourself a blessed night, and thank you for joining Palm Bay Live tonight. And thank you, Harry, for agreeing to do this interview. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.